The 5 Series has been the best overall BMW vehicle. From the first E12 to the iconic E34 to the V10 powered E60, they've all been exceptional to drive and comfortable to be in. But now the 5 Series is going all electric. So is this new BMW i5 M60 good enough to carry the strong legacy of the 5 Series? Let's go for a drive and find out. Here in Canada, you can get the BMW i5 in two different versions. There's the xDrive 40 and this M60. The 40 produces almost 400 horsepower, and in the United States you can get it as a single motor rear-wheel drive. But this M60 produces a little bit more than 400 horsepower. It produces almost 600 horsepower and almost 600 pound-feet of torque. Now that is a lot of power, but this car also weighs a lot. It almost weighs 2.4 tons. However, because it is all-wheel drive and because electric motors provide instant torque, this car can accelerate from a standstill to 100 kilometers an hour in just 3.8 seconds. And the way that it does it is quite theatrical. With launch control activated, this car shakes and rumbles and makes noises like as though it's pretending to be a rocket. You can actually see the back wheel vibrate, and that's what's causing all of these vibrations to transfer into the cabin. As I said, it is very theatrical. It doesn't need to do any of that, but it is trying to invoke some emotion whenever you engage launch control. Most of the time, however, you won't be using all 600 horsepower. In fact, in the personal mode, it's only producing a little over 500 horsepower. It's when you pull on the boost paddle do you actually get the full 600. It gives you a 10-second burst of acceleration. However, from what I've noticed, you can keep pulling on that boost paddle and reset the timer to get you another 10 seconds, and then pull it again, reset the timer again, and so on. I'm not sure how many times you can do this before the car tells you, hey, calm down a bit. Of course, you can also get the full power when you switch the car into sport mode. And you do have a few different modes to choose from. There's calm, relaxing, expressive, digital art, or of course you can customize it yourself. Now, if you've seen some other videos where the presenters do this with the car, yeah, it does do that, but it'll do it if you have a heavy foot and you decide to act like a bit of a douche. If you're much smoother on the throttle, then this car can accelerate very smoothly as well, so it doesn't give you that whiplash. The only minor complaints I have about the driving experience of the i5 has to do with the brakes. Now, the brakes themselves are very strong and the brake pedal has a firm feel to it. But when you're arriving at a complete stop, for that last little bit, it's really hard to make it really smooth. So I always find my head bobbing as the front nose dips a little bit as it arrives at a complete stop. Thankfully, there is a way to get around this, and that is by switching it to the one pedal drive mode. So just change this shifter from D to B, and every time that you lift your foot off the throttle pedal, or accelerator pedal I should say, then the car gradually slows down and it does arrive at a complete stop, and it is a much smoother stop instead of this head bobbing. You can of course also change the amount of regen braking you have, so from low, medium to high, and it also has adaptive. In the adaptive mode, it detects the car ahead, and if the car ahead slows down, then you slow down. However, it will not bring this car to a complete stop. It'll bring it down to a crawl, and then you will have to use the brake pedal to actually come to a complete stop. But if the car ahead just maintains the speed, or if there is no car ahead, then you get no regen braking. The i5 M60 has an 84.3 kilowatt hour battery pack. This allows the car to drive for an estimated 412 kilometers. During my week with the car, I noticed an average energy consumption of 21.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. With that kind of efficiency, I could have theoretically driven the BMW i5 M60 for up to 392 kilometers, pretty close to its rated range. Recharging the car takes 30 minutes at a level 3 DC fast charger from 10% to 80% at a rate of 205 kilowatts. Level 2 charging takes approximately 8 to 9 hours from 10% to 100% at a maximum rate of 11 kilowatts. This i5 M60 broadly follows similar driving characteristics as some other BMW vehicles, as in it has a very quick steering and a planted front end that changes direction quickly. But while this car responds quickly through the bends, the steering feel is lacking and is more suited for city streets rather than the Nürburgring. Having said that, the car hides its hefty weight through the corners pretty well. Not only does it have rear wheel steering with 2.5 degrees of angle, but it also comes equipped with standard rear axle suspension and optional Adaptive M Suspension Pro with active roll bars. All of these features work together to keep the car's body flat as you begin to turn the steering wheel into a corner. It's impressive what this car can do through backcountry roads, but it's by no means an electric M5. The fast steering and slick roll bars hide the weight, but they can only do so much if the car gets pushed too hard into corners. Weight is the Achilles heel of electric vehicles, and while this one does wonders with what it has, it still feels most at home doing 200 plus kilometers an hour down an autobahn rather than twisty mountain roads. For an M performance vehicle, this BMW i5 is very comfortable on city streets. With the adaptive dampers, the air suspension on the rear axle at least, and the active roll bars, this car just effortlessly drives over bumps. As I said, for an M performance car, this is such a great ride. It's also really quiet in this cabin. This car still has winter tires on it, which are generally louder than all-season tires, but this cabin is much quieter than in some other luxury vehicles. On top of that, there is absolutely no powertrain noise and no wind noise. You can introduce a little bit of sound through the speakers via the BMW Iconic sounds, but if you don't want it, you can turn it off. And of course, there are absolutely no squeaks or rattles in this cabin. Now looking at the interior of the new Electric 5 Series, and of course it follows the design trend that pretty much all other BMW vehicles have, which is very minimalist and a lack of physical buttons. And that means that all the climate controls are now in the infotainment screen. If you've seen any of my previous videos, then you know I'm not a fan of this. I much prefer physical controls because I find them to be easier to use and less distracting to use while driving. The only physical controls that remain in this interior are the window switches as well as the mirror switches, the start-stop button, and a rotary knob for the volume. Everything else is capacitive touch controls. Now, some of these touch controls just require a swipe. So for example, if you want to turn down the amount of air flowing through an air vent, but other controls require a little bit more force. So for example, the memory seats, you got to push a little bit harder to actually get it to recognize your touch. And this is why I much prefer physical buttons, because you'll know exactly when you pressed it. Whereas with this one, you have to look down and to make sure that you actually selected what you wanted to select. The other thing that I don't like about this interior are the optional glass controls. So there's a large rotary dial on the center console to control the infotainment system if you don't want to use the touchscreen to keep it clean of any fingerprints, or if you don't want to use gesture control. This car does have that option where you can do this to turn up the radio volume or do some other functions with your hand. But what I'm getting at is with the glass controls is that whenever sunlight hits it at just the right angle, it is reflecting that sunlight into my eye and burning a hole in my retina. So that is quite annoying when you're driving down the street. But other than that, the materials of this interior are really good. There's open pore wood on the dashboard. You can of course get piano black or aluminum if you want. The upper portion of the dashboard as well as the door panels is made out of soft leather, as well as the middle portion, and the bottom portion is not made out of leather, but it is soft plastic. In terms of interior space, for my above average height of 6'4", I have plenty of it, plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom. Mind you, this seat is in its lowest position, but I still have good visibility out the front, side, and even out the back. And that's about it for the front seats of the BMW i5. Now let's go check out the back seats. Back here, the BMW i5 has a lot of space. So as you can see behind my tall driving position, I can actually fit my fingers between my knees and the back of the front seat. I have plenty of leg space. I also have just the right amount of space for my feet when this seat is in its lowest position. Headroom though is a little bit less. I can feel my hair brushing up against the headliner, so I have to slouch down a little bit so that it doesn't touch. Also, these back seats are very comfortable. They have a lot of padding. So I'd be comfortable to sit back here for really long road trips without any complaints. But if you are relegated to the center seat, you won't have a whole lot of leg space because this car does have a center hump. Now the i5 does sit on the same platform as the regular gasoline version of the 5 Series, and that one does need a center hump for the drive shaft and the exhaust. Obviously, this car doesn't need it, but I guess BMW didn't want to spend the extra money in development and increase costs to get rid of this hump for the i5. Other than that, this car does have mounting points in the back of each seat for accessories, and they have built-in USB-C ports right into them. And there are 2 more USB-C ports on the center portion of the console. There are sunshades, and of course the cup holders are in the center armrest. Yeah, that's about it for the back seats of the BMW i5. In the trunk, the BMW i5 M60 has 490 liters of cargo space. The opening is wide, but the trunk gets narrower closer to the back of the rear seats. The gasoline 5 Series has a bit more cargo space than this electric version. Under the trunk floor, there's a small compartment for the charging cable or other small items, and the i5 has nothing but cables underneath the big plastic trim piece in the front. Like many things in life, the BMW i5 is expensive. The xDrive 40, which is the entry-level i5 here in Canada, will start at $83,700 Canadian, whereas this M60 version will start at $95,000 Canadian. The way that this one is equipped, it'll set you back just shy of $113,000 Canadian. That is, of course, before any sort of fees or taxes. Now, for that kind of money, the BMW i5 does have a lot of convenience and luxury features that everyone expects from a 6-figure vehicle. So it has leather upholstery, heated seats in all 4 corners, ventilated front seats, a heated steering wheel, the panoramic sunroof. Unfortunately, it doesn't open, but it does let in a lot of light. There's a head-up display, wireless phone charging pad, rear power sunshade, power trunk, 4-zone automatic climate control, Bowers & Wilkins premium sound system. The list just goes on and on. However, this car also has a lot of really cool technology features as well. Starting with the infotainment system, it is iDrive 8.5, which looks very similar to the iDrive 9 system that is in the BMW X2. The home screen is the navigation system with a few different widgets to the left side. This is a customizable system with a favorites menu accessible with a swipe down from the top of the screen. This system also has built-in games which you can play while you're waiting for the car to get recharged. Simply scan the QR code once the app launches, and then you can use your smartphone as a controller. Parking at a charging station is easy because the car can park itself. Not only can it detect other vehicles and park between them, but it can also detect the lines of a parking stall on the asphalt and park in between those, either backwards or forwards. It can also exit the parking stall, and should you drive down a narrow street with no way to make a 3-point turn, the car can perfectly follow the same path it took to get there in reverse. All you have to do is just to control the speed of the reversing maneuver. On highways, the car allows for hands-free driving if it is equipped with the Advanced Driver Assistance package. This system works at speeds of up to 130 kilometers an hour, and it will precisely navigate corners, all while keeping the car perfectly centered in the lane without any driver input. Of course, wouldn't you know it, it didn't seem to want to work while I was filming. But I did try it on another day on a different highway and the system worked as advertised. The car can also change lanes by itself whenever the driver turns on the indicators, or if there's a slower vehicle ahead, the i5 can suggest a lane change. At that point, the driver only needs to glance left or right at the side mirrors and the car will initiate the lane change. If you encounter heavy traffic on highways, the traffic jam assist will bring the car to a stop and set off again once traffic starts moving. This is by no means a level 3 autonomous driving system, but give it a couple more years and it probably will be. Overall, the BMW i5 is a good luxury car. It does have some things that I find annoying, like the lack of physical controls or those glass controls that direct sunlight straight into my eye, but overall it does provide a feeling of luxury and prestige. It is really quick in a straight line, it'll get your heart pumping, but around corners it doesn't have the same nimbleness as a gasoline counterpart, just like many other EVs. But it is still fun to drive. This car is perfect for providing a serene atmosphere when you're driving on highways or on city streets. And as I've said in some other videos, luxury cars and electric vehicles are a perfect match because there's no engine vibrations and you get a much quieter interior. And this exemplifies that perfectly. If you'd like to know more about this 2024 BMW i5 M60, I have a written review with a few more details about it over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner right up here. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck, or most likely it'll be an SUV next time. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you in the next one.